also known as the Jim McCarthy Voiceovers World Headquarters Studio. This is the JMVO Weekly Primer. Please subscribe, rate, and comment via jimmccarthyvoiceovers.com/podcast. The JMVO Weekly Primer is about making your life better through marinating your mind in good stuff. My name is Jim McCarthy, owner, operator, and chief bottle washer at jimmccarthyvoiceovers.com. I believe that as business owners, entrepreneurs, and overall salespeople, we are bombarded by negativity every day, and it's the last thing we need. So if you want to see your life and business change for your better, I believe in consuming, nurturing good stuff. You got to feed your mind. And this is episode 22 of the JMVO Weekly Primer. And I've got a really special guest on today, somebody that I heard through another podcast that everybody may know about is Dropping Bombs with Brad Lee. And I was just telling this story. When this episode appeared on that show, I texted Brad and I said, that's probably by far one of the best episodes you've had. It was so chock full of great information that I was barely aware of when it came to credit and optimizing your credit score, and whether there's even a belief out there of whether or not people even need credit anymore. And you guys pretty much put that to bed in that episode. But my guest today is Rondi Lambeth, CEO of FortressCreditPro.com. Thank you for being on the show. I've been after you for a while, as you well know.
I've been a little busy doing my media tour and TV interviews. So thank you for your patience.
Not a problem, man. I mean, as soon as he had you on, I texted him. I said, do you mind if I grab him for mine? He's like, not at all. You know, any way we could help. But start with your story. I like hearing a story about how we briefly addressed it before the show started. You started in 2007 out in Colorado. How did it all begin for you? How did you get into this game? What were you doing and what led to it?
Yeah, let me start when, I was a teenage rape pregnancy. I'm not recipient of that, but my biological father raped my mother when she was a teenager. They wanted her to have an abortion. Thankfully, that she did not do that in 1971. So I grew up really poor. In fact, I grew up in a shack in Idaho with no running water, no electricity, and we actually got our food out of the dumpster every Wednesday after school. We'd go over to the dumpster and climb in and get our food. So I grew up really poor. I left home when I was 15 years old, decided to go out on my own. And at 16 years old, I got a job at a local funeral home in John Day, Oregon, where I got mentored by a multimillionaire. And that's kind of my journey of being a business owner. I'm the oldest of 11, to be the protector, if you will, the hero, the guy that takes care of them. And so I ended up shortly after leaving the funeral home. And when I was 20 years old, I actually went to Denver, Colorado, put myself through the fire academy and become a firefighter for Littleton Fire Department. And I was there for quite some time. In 2005, I believe it was, I retired from the fire department. And in 2007, I started Fortress Credit Pro. And part of the reason behind getting into the financial services industry is, as a firefighter, I was on the busiest rescue in Denver. We ran 12 to 18 calls every day. I was the second firefighter at the Columbine High School shooting when that happened. And I've always been in that hero mentality that I have this deep, deep desire to help people. So much that I was so focused on helping strangers that I missed the signs that my little brother in Oregon was struggling. And in April 2006, my little brother, who also was a firefighter, shot and killed himself over some credit card debt and collections. Kind of like figure out, what am I going to do? So 2007, I started Fortress Credit Pro, America's first paid-on results credit and debt services company. So that's where it all started, was 2007. Since then, we've helped hundreds of thousands of people. We've deleted millions of dollars in late payments, charge-offs, collections, short sales, bankruptcy, judgments, tax liens. You name it, we've deleted it. In fact, there's nothing on a credit report that cannot be deleted from a credit report. So that's how it all got started, and that's where we're at now.
Very cool. So, I mean, getting into it, you hit the ground running and had to learn it as you went along, I would imagine.
Yeah, there really wasn't a lot out there. There's, the companies that charge a lot of money up front, thousands of dollars up front, or then you got the Lexington Law model, which is $99 a month for the next 2 to 3 years of your life. And according to their website, they average a 25% deletion rate. Whereas somebody like me that's paid on results, we average a 75 to 100% deletion rate, because if I don't get anything deleted, if I don't correct anything on the credit repair, if I don't on the credit report or repair anything, we don't bill our clients anything. So we have to be better than our competitors. And so we just figured it out. And in 2010, I started a radio show called Your Credit Matters in San Diego. It was syndicated on Salem within about a year of my first episode. And one of the ways that I learned the advanced tactics of credit repair was I invited attorneys who sued banks, credit bureaus, and collection companies. And I interviewed them, and then I'd take them out to lunch. And I hate the term, but I would pick their brain, if you will, and found out the insides and outsides of the litigation of credit-related items. And that's how I built my business, is on the litigation part of it. And so that's how we're so much more successful than a lot of these monthly service companies.
So that's, a lot of people, when they think about credit, it's still relevant. They still think that it vastly matters. It's a huge part of their lives these days. Is there a misnomer out there that some people think it doesn't?
There are a lot of people that don't think it matters. The Dave Ramsey followers, they're probably the worst at this. They believe that cash is king. Cash is not king. Cash is dead. Credit is king, because look at my friend Grant Cardone. I met Grant in February 2017. He had $400 million of real estate at that time. And in less than 18 months, he's brought that up over $1 billion with no cash, all credit. So cash is dead. Credit is the most important 3-digit number in your life. How much you pay in interest, that's what everybody thinks. Well, I don't want the interest, I don't want the debt. So it's not just that. It's how much you pay in car insurance, how much you pay in renter's insurance, mortgage insurance, life insurance, health insurance. And 70% of employers now, they check your credit. So if you got horrible credit, guess what? You ain't getting a job. Because I know when I look at my client or my potential employees, that's the first thing we do. We do a background check. We check their credit. I can look at a credit report and tell you if you're a good person or a bad person. Not based on your score, but based on your history, your past. And I can tell if you just had a little hiccup or a speed bump, or if you're just bad, irresponsible, because I don't want those kind of employees, because they bring their drama and their baggage with them. And so a lot of employers now will check 70%, check your credit first.
That's so good. I forgot about that. Yeah. So, have you've hired people that have had bad credit? And
I have,
it turned out, yeah.
Most, almost every single person that works for me has hired my company. And a lot of them, that's how they find me, is by hiring me, they hire us and then we end up hiring them. I can't think of one single employee that I have that, except for the brand new ones that are 22, 21 years old. I love hiring millennials. They're probably the only ones that haven't hired me to fix their credit, just because they don't have it yet.
Right.
But, I've hired a few people that I probably shouldn't have hired. But, it is what it is. That's how you learn, right? You make mistakes.
My big mistake happened at 18 when I was able to get credit for the first time. And, I think I built up like $600 on one card and like $1,000 or $1,500 on another card. And, things happened. I made stupid decisions. And by age 19, I probably was like a, 450 Beacon or something. And, it was true, man. For 7 years, I couldn't get a freaking pencil financed. But I mean, I would go with my girlfriend at the time, who later became my wife. She would go and get her cell phone renewed, and I'd go, "Oh, I'm gonna get a cell phone," and then they'd check your credit, and yeah, it was massively embarrassing, in front of the woman that hopefully you're gonna, provide for someday. Man, it's just a great learning experience early on. I got that shit out of the way quick, and learned from it. We became homeowners. I had to. The bank that was trying to finance us, thankfully we had my in-laws that helped us out on it. And, man, I had to write just apology letters practically to the bank,
Yeah.
It followed me around. It was horrible.
It does follow you around. And that's, it's attached to our psyche. People are very emotional because it really tells the bank, it potentially tells the bank who you are as a person, whether or not you're a man of your word or a woman of your word, whether you take your responsibility seriously. Granted, there are people that make mistakes, and that's where I come in. I help people that have recovered, and I help them fix their mistakes. I mean, I filed my first bankruptcy when I was 22 years old. I didn't know any better. I grew up poor. I didn't even know what credit was. Like you, at 18, 19, I started getting credit cards, and I went crazy with them. I didn't understand it. And so I really like helping people. And at Fortress, we're really an educational company that also does credit repair. And we don't do debt settlement. We wipe out credit card debt and student loan debts through a very sophisticated proprietary system. In fact, last year we wiped out over $50 million of credit card debt and student loan debt through our system. So I love helping people with their credit and debt, especially coaching them so they can become a better person. And I look at it as I'm saving lives.
Right.
I'm saving marriages, I'm saving lives, and I'm really helping people. So I like doing that.
People, they look at it as kind of like an inescapable situation sometimes. I remember thinking to myself, until I was a homeowner and things started, when I financed my first car by myself, was like, wow, what a day. That was awesome. Now you're talking about wiping away all this credit and all this debt and stuff like that and kind of getting people off the hook. With the way you do it, is there a detriment to doing that? Typically with the debt forgiveness, it's almost like declaring bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Does that kind of affect the same thing with what you're doing, or are you doing something vastly?
No, so we do a completely different. What we do, the same thing that we do with credit repair, is we hold the creditors, the collection companies, and the credit bureaus accountable. The law says if you're going to report on a credit report, you must do this. If they don't do if they skip step B and skip to C, we're going to find that, exploit that, and get it removed. We don't send out silly letters that this account's not mine. We send out a letter that says, hey, the account number you're displaying is inaccurate. Please delete it or I'm going to sue you, is basically how our letters work. On the debt dismissal program, we don't settle the debt. We don't negotiate the debt. We simply buy the debt from you. So if you had $50,000 in credit card debt, we would assume that debt, take on the responsibility as your rich uncle, contact the bank, start making payments to the bank with 6 conditions. The conditions are: you cannot charge us interest. There is no minimum monthly fee. You can't call us. You can't mail us. You can't put it on the credit report. And there are no late fees. If you agree to these 6 terms and conditions, we will happily pay you. They accept it every single time because they don't even read the fine print. Just like you. I know this year you have received a terms and conditions update on a credit card. If you want, you get one every single year. Did you read it, or did you just throw it in the trash?
Oh man, I read every single word.
Yes. And then what did you do? Did you read the part that says you don't have to accept the terms and conditions? But you can actually call and say no, and they will say no problem. We'll just close that account.
Yeah.
So it's the same law that applies to them as it does to us. We have to accept the terms by not accepting the terms. So if you use that card, you've accepted the terms. If they've cashed our check, they accepted our terms. And then we just sit and wait for them to violate it. So $2,500 fine per violation, or essentially $15,000 a month in violations is what we rack up. So it takes about 3 months to wipe out your $50,000. We've gone as much as $500,000 for doctors and attorneys that have student loans. And to answer your original question, does it hurt your credit? Yeah, for about 2 years. You're going to have some late payments on there, some charge-offs on there. But with our program, everybody gets free credit repair after the fact. So we dismiss the debt and then we clean it all up and send you on your way.
But it's not like you're really doing any more damage than what they've already done anyway. So
no, it's not like a bankruptcy or a settlement or anything like that. You can actually go right back to the same credit card companies and get them again, because it's not debt settlement, it's debt dismissal. So what we do is at the 6-month mark, we make an offer. Look, we've racked up $75,000 to $90,000 of fines. We will happily pay the $50,000 card, but you're going to give us $90,000 in fine, or we can simply go our separate ways. And so the banks just go their separate way. We go our separate way. We wipe out the debt, and then we charge our client 45% of the original debt over a 3-year period at 0% interest. So it's a good deal for the client. And a lot of clients, if they have available credit, they can actually pay our fee with a credit card, and we'll wipe out that credit card as well.
I would imagine you with helping people like that, you must hear some pretty amazing things in appreciation for what you've done. What's some of the, I guess, more of the noteworthy ones that come to mind? Anything that you think of that someone said to you, like, thanks for saving my life, anything like that?
I've had multiple thanks for saving my life when I was in a really dark spot. Thanks for saving my marriage. I have kids that come up to me and hug me at speaking events or whatever. Thanks for saving my mom and daddy. Pictures of them in their new home, refinancing their car. Generally, when I talk to them, they're usually in tears. I've had doctors. I had one doctor, she was 32 years old, still living with mom and dad. Her student loan payments were almost $10,000 a month. And we wiped out all of her student loans. And she's like, you just saved me 20 years of, a below average life, because I have $500,000 on student loan debt. So that's what's rewarding.
Yeah. If you could implore something to somebody, at 18, and this is another thing that Cardone said. I'm very familiar with Cardone as well. One of the things that stuck out in my mind is that when you owe the bank like $10,000 or more, it's not your problem, it's theirs.
Exactly.
That's an interesting way to think about it.
Yeah, it's not your problem, it's their problem.
It's a big problem.
I'm not insinuating that you should rack up credit card debt and then charge it off. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying this is for people that are they're struggling. I tell people every day, look, don't do this program. You're making the payment. Just don't do it. Just go get a job for Uber on the weekends and pay this debt off, But it's for the people, especially the single moms. They get divorced. The husband leaves them. They got little kids. He's not paying child support or whatever. And the fathers too. My kids, I had custody of them. Their mom never paid a dime in child support. Mm-hmm. It's for the people that are really struggling. This is their way out. I think my favorite story was a 78-year-old lady, grandma from San Diego. Husband had recently divorced her, left her with $1,200 a month Social Security. She wasn't even buying her prescriptions. And she told me, she goes, I was thinking about ending my life because I was starving. She said, I was starving. I had no money after paying rent. And I wiped out her credit card debt, which I know that saved her life. So I like what I do.
Yeah. It is being a hero for sure, in a definite sense of that. And it's pretty amazing that people, even when I wasn't that far into debt. I look back on it. I owed $600 on a credit card. Of course, now I look back on that and say, I could just write a check and take care of that. But back then, that was insurmountable. But I can't imagine, and it's hard for me to believe that people actually consider taking their own lives over this. Yeah. But it's amazing.
5,000 people a year in America. 5,000.
Wow.
My little brother had less than $3,000 of debt.
Oh my gosh!
I got more money in my pocket right now than $3,000. Yeah. And it's heartbreaking. And I didn't talk about it for a long, long time because I still feel guilty about it. Because here I was saving everybody else's life and ignoring my own family. So, but I'm using it to help other people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You never anticipated it. It's what can you do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you asked earlier, what would I tell an 18-year-old? I would tell them to go get a book called The Richest Man in Babylon. Richest Man in Babylon by Clausen. I read that book at least once a year. I think it's by far the best financial book out there. And then from there, maybe some Rich Dad, Poor Dad books. Just be careful with that. But I think the Richest Man in Babylon. Richest Man in Babylon will give you a really good idea, foundation on how to handle your money. And the other thing is, if you're 18 years old, I would say live your life and only spend 50% of what you make. Live off of 50%. Invest. My friend Matt Marinaro says it all the same time: is stack and rack. Stack it and rack it. Yep, 50%. Because if you can start at a young age at 50%, man, the sky's the limit. And I'm not saying to do the Dave Ramsey miser thing, separate your toilet paper so it lasts long. I'm not saying that. I'm saying take 50% of what you make, put it in a savings account, and then invest it. I prefer to invest in guns, cars, classic cars, and then multifamily apartment complexes, just like Grant.
Yeah. And it seems to be working. And it's the guy I had on last week. His name is Tony Bradshaw. He wrote a book called The Millionaire Choice. And I told up to him, I said, there are a lot of people out there that claim that their way to become wealthy is the only way, from the Ramseys to the Cardones to you got Vaynerchuk doing his thing. I'm like, at the end of the day, man, there's just 1,000 ways to skin a cat and to do this, And we kind of talked about that. I had Monero on a couple of weeks ago as well. What a great interview that I had with him as well, similar to this one. But yeah, you're right. I mean, a lot of people. I live in Ramsey territory, Middle Tennessee. So everybody around here is financial peace. And the thing is that what people don't realize, yes, he teaches great stuff, but it's the first step to get your financial house in order. And I don't think, and I Cardone would love to have him on an interview. I think that would just, and
Dave would never do it. Dave tried getting my spot in San Diego because I had a 5:30 to 6 o'clock drive time. And Dave was on at 8:30 and tried, and Salem would not give it up to him. In fact, after 7 years of my contract expired, they still didn't give it to Dave. They still made him have a later time. But the problem I have is, I believe he's a hypocrite because he's telling people debt is dumb, cash is king, yet he makes the majority of his money from people going into debt. He owns half a church mortgage. He owns part of an insurance company. He gets 35% referral fees when you buy a house from his certified real estate agent. So he's making his money by his listeners going to debt and buying his products. And I just have an issue with that. And he's hurting a lot of people with, cut up your credit cards, live off the grid, pay cash. And I've seen Dave's credit report, actually. He doesn't have a zero credit report. Zero credit score. He's got an unrated. But I don't like the fact that he's so anti-credit. I mean, we're not in the 1950s anymore. Credit's so important to our lives. So important.
It is, and I think a lot of the, I was in the car business for several years, and we had one situation. We had a set of customers that came on. The wife started working for Dave at some point, and they just needed to get out of debt. They were drinking from the fire hose. I had to get out of debt. Okay, we've got $11,000 in cash. I think at the time they had like a 2013 CRV or 2012 CRV EX. They're paying like $500 something a month on it, but we got to sell it. We got to unload it. We got to get into a car that's paid for $11,000 positive, right? Mm-hmm. So they get the car appraised. They were $6,000 upside down. So there goes $6,000 of their $11,000. Right. So now they have $5,000 to buy a car. And literally, and I'm looking around. At the time, I could pull from a lot of different dealerships. And at the time, I found a car. I think it was like $3,500. It was a Honda Accord, a 2001 Honda Accord with 167,000 miles on it. Sight unseen. Okay.
Yeah.
I said, typically when we bring in a car from another dealership, If it doesn't meet the presentation that we see online, typically you're not obligated to buy it. I said, but in this case, we're not going to stand behind that. This is a value car. Okay, so you're buying this car. And I said, I'm going to take my salesman hat off now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put my human hat on because I still need to put my head down at night and sleep. This is a bad idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Take the money you have and pay off the CRV that's pretty much brand new. You're going to have it for the next 15 years. It's going to carry you through. Just pay it off. Don't do this. This is a bad. And it was, for me, it was a half deal. I was sharing it with another salesperson. So I couldn't care less if I did, but I didn't. But, yeah. And I said, he's like, no, we're going to do it. I said, okay, I'm going to put the sales hat back on. Sign here. Here we go. I said, if it gets here, it doesn't start. It's your problem.
It's horrible that people will do that, but it's their life. And if they want to, it is what it is. But I want to bring something up. You said to pay off the car loan. And I want to let everybody know the myth about paying off the car loan. Paying off installment loans will actually lower your credit score. I've seen people's credit score drop 50 points after they pay off their car. And so what I recommend is to never, ever pay off an installment loan, which would be a student loan, car loan, motorcycle, airplane, boat, SUV, whatever. Don't pay off an installment loan early. You always pay it full term.
I wish I
think about it. Yeah. Do you have kids, Jim?
I do. I've got 3.
All right. Your wife go full term, or is she having preemie?
No. She went full term. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you want her to go full term?
Yeah.
It's healthier for the baby. It's healthier for the mother if you go full term, right? Mm-hmm. You never want to have a premature baby. When you pay off a loan, it's like you're going premature, and the banks will punish you through their partner, also known as FICO, that you paid off the loan early because they invested in you. They gave you the money. You said you would do it over 5 years. They were counting on that interest for 5 years, 6 years, whatever. And then you went and paid it off early. So they will actually lower your credit score for going and paying it off. Instead, what I tell people to do is pay it down to the number of months remaining on the loan. So if you got 2 years left on the loan, pay it down to $24 and then pay $1 a month for 24 months. Because if you pay it completely off, it stunts your growth. So then you end up with what's called a thin file. A thin file is you have a thin credit report, and that's essentially what Ramsey's got. He's got no credit report. He's got a report, but nothing on it. And instead, you want to have an Andre the Giant report. You want a huge credit report. You were in the car business, right? You see these people come in with these massive credit reports. And they walk out with 0% financing, 1.9, nothing down, incredible lease deals. And then you got these other people that come in, haven't ever bought a car before, and they're paying 20% interest, 17% interest, 18, 20% down, and they're stuck getting a car that otherwise would be much cheaper if they had good credit. So don't pay off the loans early, pay them down. This works in every single application with exception to 2, which would be the buy here, pay here deals, and the loans that you have to do ACH on. It will not work on the ACH loans because the bank's going to take the full amount out the next month. So essentially what happens is when you make that big chunk and you chunk it down, it will actually go towards your future payments. So you could go get a 60-year loan or 60-month loan right now. Tomorrow, pay it all the way down to $50. When you pulled your credit report, it would show that you've made 59 payments, even though you made one payment. So you're paying it ahead. And that, I don't believe in having consumer debt, bad debt. I believe in having good debt. So just don't pay it off early. Pay it down fast.
That's a great takeaway just now. I had no idea. We just literally paid off a car. But I do remember that happening back in 2008. We bought a van. When child number 2 arrived, it was probably the most expensive baby stroller we ever bought, but that's a whole separate story. Basically, in a nutshell, we were going from 1 to 2, and we had to buy a double stroller. I found a great deal on a like a Graco double stroller somewhere, and went to go put it in the trunk of her car at the time, and it wouldn't fit. And I'm like, this is going to be the most expensive stroller I've ever bought. So we bought the van. We paid that off early. I think we were 2.5 years into the loan. We paid it off in 2.5 years. But I noticed my payments went down vastly.
Your score went down.
Well, the payments went down. I mean, it was like $230 a month, and all of a sudden, like, hey, it's only $60 a month.
Yeah. And that's what they do is they apply it to your payment. So when you get your statement, when it happens is it'll say payment, your monthly payment $300 a month, amount due 0, next payment $2,022.
I will tell you this, because we just recently paid all this stuff off in credit. I do remember the one thing, and I'm not going to give it away. I want you to talk about it. But the one thing you talked about in Brad's show, I kept that in mind, and we'll talk about it here in a bit. But my score did drop 10 points.
Yeah. And it will it'll continue to drop because 15% of your credit score, 75 points, has to do with the average length of credit history, or the average of all of your credit accounts combined into one, divided by how many accounts. That's your average. Mm-hmm. And if it's below 4 years, you get dinged with it. So this is something that happened with Brad. Brad was buying cars left and right. And he's like, how do I get my score up past this amount? I'm like, dude, you got to stop buying cars left and right and paying them off early. He's like, I don't want to pay the interest. So I got Brad to switch over to business lines of credit and stop using his personal name to buy business cars. Mm-hmm. And so when you're constantly flipping cars or doing leases every 2 years, it actually lowers your length of average credit history, which lowers your credit score. And remember, the banks make money off of interest. So there are 4,200 different scorecards that FICO has. FICO will put you in a lower credit score if you're constantly flipping cars. So instead of being a 300 to 850 range, you might be a 300 to 750 range. And you do everything perfect, and the highest you'll ever have is a 750 because you're paying off your cars too fast, or you're in student loans too fast, or whatever it is.
So you're saying is I got to go get another car payment then?
Well, if you want to, yeah. There are other ways to do it. Sure. Yeah. Don't pay cash. Don't pay cash for a car. What I tell people is get a loan and then pay it down as fast as possible, and then leave a little bit of money in there.
Well, that gets into the next part of this, and this is maybe analyzing my situation because I have the opportunity to I have a personal line of credit that I have access to, about $25,000. And, we're talking about putting it into an opportunity with a local business that has cash flow and things of that nature, all the things that everybody talks about that I know I need to stack and rack and get to. Yeah. This might be a good opportunity, and I'm talking about it on Tuesday morning. But personal line of credit, is that the same basic? I mean, if I max that thing out, that's not going to help me either.
It's not, because it's going to show up as a revolving account, same as a credit card, and you're going to now be over 10% utilized, and it's going to hammer your credit score.
Okay.
Yeah.
So transitioning into what we were going to talk about and those points that you made with Brad's show, credit cards, what's the best practice? How we get up to an 800 and above?
Yes. So the best practice, and I talked about this morning on Good Day Sacramento, channel CBS 13, and you need to have at least three open credit cards at all times. So that's the magic number. Not one, not two, but 3 or more. The more you have, the higher your credit score will be, because it is going to put you in a different scorecard, or a lower risk scorecard. The reason for this is Bill Fair and Earl Isaac created FICO in 1956. Mathematician and engineer, they created this very complicated algorithm that literally predicts the future. And it's extremely accurate at predicting the future of whether or not you will have a 90-day late or more in the next 24 months. That's all your score is. And I'll go over what 300 to 850 means later. But they're trying to predict the future on whether or not you're going to be late. They have found that people with less than 3 credit cards are more likely to be late in the next 2 years than people that are managing more. They see that as more responsible. On the credit cards, once you got your 3, you want to keep your balances between 1 and 10% of the credit limit, so the utilization rate. A lot of people will go and say, well, my debt to income ratios are too high, that's why I have bad credit. Your debt to income has nothing to do with your credit score. income never comes into play when it comes to scoring. It is your utilization rate on credit card, not installment loans, not a mortgage, not student loans. Credit cards is the only time debt actually impacts your score in a positive or negative way. So one of the anchors today asked me, she said, do I have to put money on my card every month? Because I just don't use them. I use my debit card. You're actually penalized. FICO will penalize you and take points away if you have zero balances on your credit cards. They want to see 1 to 10% every month. So if you got a $5,000 credit card, they want to see $50 a month on that card, no more than $500. And then you pay it off in full every month. The problem comes in, Jim, in Brad was having this issue, so I got him switched over to corporate credit. I have lots of business owners that have this issue. They max out their credit cards for the points, for the rewards, right? Mm-hmm. The travel points, cash back. The problem comes in that even if you're paying it off in full every month, the reporting date, the day that the furnisher, the credit card company, reports to the credit reporting agency, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, is not the due date. It's generally before the due date. So if your due date's on the 15th and the report date's the 10th, and you're maxed out on the 10th, guess what gets reported? The full balance on the 10th. And you pay it off on the 15th, that doesn't get reported because they already reported on the 10th. So now come the next month, it's the same thing. And so when I pull people's credit reports, they're like, why am I stuck in the low 600s? It's because you're maxing out your credit cards. But I pay them off every month. But you're not paying them by the reporting date. So here is the trick. You simply call your credit card company and you ask, what day of the month do you report to the credit reporting agencies? They may or may not know, so they need to get a supervisor. They only report 1 day a month. They don't report every single day. It's 1 day a month. It's called a tape. They upload the tape into eOscar. That goes to the credit reporting agencies. And then when you pull your credit, they send a ping over to FICO. FICO creates a credit score right that second based on the balances that are being reported on your credit report. And if you're paying on the due date, that's not going to work. So one thing to do is pay it by the report date or don't go over 10%. So there's your options.
Treated like it's got to be utilized, though, too.
It has to be utilized. So I have a credit card, a Sears MasterCard. I've had it since 2010. Mm-hmm. I got a brand new wash machine and dryer, Samsung Fire Engine Red wash machine dryer. It's really important. You got the red wash machine and dryer.
Yeah, absolutely.
I put that charge on there, paid it off in the 18 months, 0% interest. I used their money. And then after that, there's been one charge and one charge only for the last 9 years, whatever it is. And that is Netflix at $9.99 a month. Used to be $7.99. And so I have it set up to automatically pay itself off in full every month. I don't worry about it. $10 goes on, $10 comes off. Because I have that activity, they just keep increasing my credit limit more and more and more. Keeps reporting. So now I have what's called 99-month reporting on my credit report because that's the high as it goes, 99 months reviewed. And they're not closing the account. If I did not do that, they would simply close that account, which would then stunt my growth, if you will, and eventually I would have a thin file to when everything fell off. I would have no file at all. So you got to use the cards every month. They want to see you using something. Generally, FICO wants to see between 1 and 10%. If you go over 10%, you lose 10 points. You go over 20%, you lose 20 points, 30%, 30 points, so on and so forth. Max it out, you lose 100 to 200 points.
Wow.
Because 75% of your score is based on how you use your credit cards. It's the most important thing on your credit cards, how you use them. More so than payment history, that's what people focus on is the late payments, and they ignore the credit card history. Some of the celebrities I work with, they might have some damaged credit. I simply put them on my fixes their problem, and then I take them off my cards, and all my history shows up on theirs. We'll stay there for 10 years, and they get 800 credit score just because I put them on my scores on my cards. So
that's That's the best counseling you can give to get to that elusive 8, the bullet range, which is, I guess, is like 765 and above.
Yeah. Now, I want to throw this out there, Jim. If you're listening right now and you have a 740 or higher credit score, ignore everything I just said. If you're over 740 FICO, not Vantage, but FICO, just keep doing what you're doing. All right, just do what you're doing. You're fine. You know, I had someone the other day, I pulled his credit, it was 836. He's got one credit card. I mean, he's 70 years old. And he's like, well, you said blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, look, Stan, you're an 836. You can ignore what I said. Okay. But if you're less than 740, if you want to be over 740, you got to do what I said. Because what happens is, remember, I said there's scorecards.
Yeah.
Once you hit so many years with no late payments, no big balances, you're in a low risk scorecard. It don't matter if you max out every single card. FICO doesn't care because you haven't missed a payment in 30 years. So, but I want to talk about the 300 to 850 range if I can.
Sure, absolutely.
I promise that.
I'm just looking at my
if you're listening right now, yeah. You have a pen and paper in front of you, Jim?
I have my notes on my iPad.
Perfect. All right. So if you guys are listening right now and you're driving, do not do this. But if you're not, write this down. 300 to 850. That's 300 to 850. 850. I want you to put a period between the two zeros. So it's a 30.0. And put a period between 5 and 0. So it's 85.0. So 30.0 to 85.0.
Okay.
Then put a percentage sign behind the two zeros.
85.0.
That's your score range. Okay. 30 to 85%. Now, what does that mean? If you have a 300 credit score, there is a 30% chance you're going to pay your creditors. If you have an 850 credit score, there's an 85% chance you will pay on time over the next 2 years. That's all that score means. Now, is that exact science? No. But that's roughly what that score means. 30 to 85%. Now, why does it go to 1,000 or 100%? There's only 100% chance of anything in life, and that's that you're going to die someday. That's it. 100% chance eventually you will die. There's never more than an 85% chance you're going to pay your bills. 85%, that's it. You could lose your job, you could get sick, you could die. That's the max. All right. So anything over 740, 74% is considered A paper, and you can pretty much get anything and everything you want as far as terms if you have the income to pay for it. So that's what the 300 850. So next time you look at your score and you got a 440, there's only a 44% chance you're going to pay your bills, and that's why you're paying more interest, is because the bank's got to charge you more, even though there's a 100% chance you're going to pay because you're going to be above and beyond everybody else. There's a lot of other people at 44, so you're paying more interest to make up for the people that aren't going to pay. So that's the range. How's that for some nuggets?
I think that's some great. We're getting some comments. Clay Curitan says, this is great information. Jonathan Lusk had a question. If you pay it down, remaining principal to months remaining, won't the next monthly payment just settle the debt? But I guess not if you're doing the 10%, the 5 to 10% or a rule of thumb, if you will.
He's talking about installment loans. He's talking about car loans.
Right.
Yeah. So if you make the scheduled payment, which let's say your payment is $350 a month, and you pay down $50, the next month you pay $350. Yeah, it's going to close the loan. But you don't. You pay $1 a month every month from that point forward. The only time this doesn't work, like I said, is if it's ACH required because you got horrible credit and the bank's requiring you to do it, or buy here, pay here loans, or one other aspect, and that is if you write principal only on your check, they're going to apply it towards the principal, not the payment. So you simply just send it in as a payment, and they're going to take whatever excess it is, and they're going to apply it to future payments. I know people in the fishing industry, the deadliest catch guys, they will go and pay their bills 3-4 months in advance because they're on a boat. They don't have access to it. They don't use bill pay. So they'll literally send 4 months payments on a car. And when they get back off the boat, they've made 4 months payments. My brother, who used to work on a highway paving crew, that's what he did. He paid all of his bills 1 year in advance. His cell phone, his insurance, everything. Because then he would go on the road. He didn't have, he's living in hotels. He didn't have access. Now you can, but back in the day, in the 90s, he didn't have internet and that kind of thing. So he just paid all his bills. So that's what it does. You're paying your payments in advance.
So with the notion and the current bubble that's happening in the economy with the student loan fiasco and dire emergency, somebody's in that situation. They've got, I don't know, however hundreds or if not thousands a month that's going out to pay off a student loan. What do they do? What's the mindset to start adopting in that situation?
And they're planning on paying the full thing, right? They're not going to go into my dismissal program or anything like that. Let's just say that they're not going to, because if it's a federal student loan, I can't help them with that. 80% of all student loans are private, branded as federal. And people don't realize this. They think that the government's giving you a 6-month grace period after you graduate. It's not true, Jim. That's not why they are. The reason they're giving you 6 months is so they can bundle it up and sell it as a security on the stock market. That's why they give you 6 months. It gives them time to bundle it. Once they do that, it becomes a private student loan, which you can file bankruptcy on, which this is going to be what's going to burst the bubble, if you will, which we're going that way. It's $1.5 trillion, more so than credit cards, more than mortgages. It is going to break our system soon, considering that 30% of our GDP is student loan debt. Literally 30% selling debt to stock market. So what do? You talked about earlier about the 25% line of credit. I can show you how to take a 30-year mortgage and have it paid off in 5 to 7 years without making an extra payment by using a line of credit. You can take a 10 or 20-year student loan and pay it off in 3 years to 5 years. I have a Ferrari. It's a 12-year loan. My Ferrari will be paid off in 3 years by using my line of credit. I'm borrowing from the line of credit to paying down the principal, and I borrow from one bank to pay the other bank, and I'm borrowing money for free. So what they can do, you have a mortgage now, Jim?
I do.
All right. So you could use that line of credit to start chunking away on your principal. I sat down with the guy that I was telling you about that had 836 credit score. He just bought a house. I showed him how to use his $20,000 line of credit. His house will be completely paid off in 5 years. He literally just bought it last month, did a 30-year mortgage. He'll have it paid off in 5 years using this strategy. And that's essentially borrowing money from one bank, paying the other bank, and then borrowing from this bank. And you just rotate through that cycle every 30 days without paying interest. And so you're eliminating 60 to 70% of the interest. Similar to like using a credit card. When you use your credit card, as long as you pay it off by the due date, there's no interest. And we do the same thing. And I have a 6-hour course on just how to do this. So I can't really spend 6 hours explaining it now. But essentially, I would go get a line of credit. If you got a bunch of student loan debt or mortgages or car loans, I'd get a line of credit, borrow from that, pay down your installment loan, pay back the line of credit with your paycheck, then use the line of credit to pay your bills until the next month, and then pay it off with your paycheck and rinse and repeat.
And it's kind of tough to wrap your mind around it because so many people have a very simplistic way to think about it. So many people are thinking inside the box, even when it comes to home ownership. And that brings up another interesting question: mortgages. What are your thoughts on them? Ramsey's way is thinking is the new paid off home mortgage is taking the place of the BMW in the driveway. Well, that's not always a good thing.
No. I got some mixed feelings on this. My first house, I was 18 years old. I bought my first house when I was 18, and I've been a homeowner pretty much my whole life until last Friday. I still have a house in Florida, but my primary residence I've always owned up until last Friday. I sold my beach house in Lake Tahoe last Friday because I think the real estate market is getting ready to correct, and I want my cash out now. So when it does correct, it's going to put me in a really good place to buy a new home. On mortgages, if you're going to buy a house, I recommend that you buy the house not with a 30-year mortgage or 15-year mortgage, but you buy it with a line of credit. And there are actually mortgages, or there's actually programs where you can buy an entire house 20% down with a line of credit. Because of the way interest works on line of credit, it's accrued daily versus mortgages are front loaded. So the first 15 years, you primarily pay interest. And then the second 15 years of the mortgage, you pay principal, which is why the banks want you to refinance every 3 to 5 years, because you're just simply paying interest that whole time. Mm-hmm. So back to the mortgage thing. This one's tough because, Grant Cardone, Grant says, I rent where you live, own what you rent. Now he's kind of changed it with you buy with multiple doors, you rent with single doors. And I've been renting a house in Las Vegas since last year. And I tell you, I hate it. I hate renting because every time something breaks, I got to call the landlord. I got to wait for it to get fixed. I can't do what I want. And so I'm torn with this because I think there's some emotional stability with owning that you don't get with renting. But like I said I don't know if it was during the interview or before the interview, I think if you're going to buy, it should be 50% of what they qualify you for. So if they say you can afford a $500,000 house, then buy a $250,000 house, use the line of credit and have it paid off in 3 to 5 years. Because I was showing this attorney, Stan, the guy I was telling you with the 836 credit score, his house was $188,000. If he does a simple interest at 4.5%, he's going to pay almost $390,000 for a $180,000 home. Over the course of the term, versus if he does the line of credit program, he's going to pay about $250,000. Mm-hmm. So he'll save almost $150,000 in just interest. If you're young, or if you're not completely 100% convinced that you're going to live in that city where you live right now for the rest of your life, I would not buy a house. I wouldn't do it. I would simply rent until you figure out where you're going to be forever. And as of right now, I think it'd be a very foolish thing to buy a house right now. I know the realtors would probably cringe for me saying that, and so would the mortgage brokers. But and Grant, listen, most of my income comes from people wanting to buy a house. They want their credit fixed so they can buy a house. And I tell them, look, I'll fix your credit, but I think it's a bad idea to buy a house. And they're like, I don't care, I'm buying it anyway. I think the market's getting ready to correct. I think it's going to correct.
I agree. I can see that, and I think that we've gone a long time without it correcting, and pretty soon things will be going on sale. That's why, credit to Matt Monero, my wife and I kind of preach the whole accumulation mode. This is where and that's what we're doing. We're putting money away and finding opportunities in the marketplace here in town where we can optimize our, where the money starts making money for us. We learned our hard lesson in the past 20 years. But then again, I was also a single income earner in radio of all places, which doesn't pay very well. So I'm kind of reversing that at age, as of tomorrow, 43. So it's a wonderful thing. And Cardone is right. He's one of those guys. I love what he says, but he's one of those guys. It's like my way is the way.
My way is the only way.
Right. But I mean, a lot of people. I put this on people all the time with home ownership. I said, it's the American dream. I'm going, no, it's not. The American dream back in the 1700s was to create your own path. It was, create your own future. That was the dream. Yeah. And the realization of so many immigrants is that they could carve their own way of life. It wasn't home ownership. Okay. Right. And retirement, which is a whole new concept. And I said, at the end of you don't own the home. The bank owns the home. As long as you have a friggin' mortgage, you don't own it. Okay. And then when you even pay it off, you still don't own it. Because
someone owns it.
Right. You own the equity.
Renting it from the government and the banks. I think with Grant, and I cannot prove this, but I'm going to go out on a limb on something with Grant and his rental. Mm-hmm. his penthouse rental. He's doing the same thing that Ty Lopez does, the same thing a lot of my wealthy clients and friends do, the same thing that I'm going to do when I buy a house in Vegas. I'm personally not going to buy it. My business is going to buy it.
Exactly.
I'm going to.
Oh, I lost him, unfortunately. Hopefully we'll come back on. There he is. There you go.
There. I believe that is what Grant's doing. And
yeah, I think he is.
With the new tax code, unless you buy a $400,000 house to $750,000, you can't write it. You're better off with the standard deduction. I mean, is your house payment, is your interest more than, or is your house payment more than $3,000, Jim?
No, not at all.
Yeah, so you're better off with the $24,000 standard deduction. You're not even going to write the interest off anymore. And once you hit $750,000, you can't write it off anyway.
No.
And so a lot of people that are wealthy, all the people that I know that are wealthy, they don't own the houses. The business owns it, and they rent it from the business, which allows the business to write off the interest, the taxes, the maintenance. So I believe that Grant actually, one of his companies owns his penthouse, and he's renting it from his company.
Exactly.
I don't think he's renting it from some random person.
I think that's what he's pretty much driving across. Yeah.
And so if you really want to buy a house, I would recommend that you get a business and you do it that way. Otherwise, or trust, do something. But I think you should rent until you're 100% sure you're locked in and you're stable, and that's where you're going to stay, and you're not going to go somewhere else.
There was an address in Vegas. You know, we bought our first house in Vegas, and you know, it was 02 we bought it, and I remember seeing that mortgage payment going, oh my gosh, how are we going to meet that? You know, we're going from rent to owning a house, and we bought in North Las Vegas at the time, which I'm not sure if you're aware of the stigma that North Las Vegas either has or had, but it's you know, we did what we could, and we bought there, and we it was just one of those things that I think from 02 to 05, we paid $147 for it, and we sold it for $250-ish. So, I mean, we doubled our money in 3 years. I mean, that was just the hot market back then. But then we moved out to Nashville. We've been in this house 13 years. And it's, you know, we just refinanced it and everything. And I you know, we took down our debt level, which it's funny because my financial guy looked at our debt, and he's like, you know, he does the whole LEAP method thing. And he says, what do you think the glaring problem is up there? I'm going, I don't know. I said, you know, he's like, well, I think it's the debt. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't really consider that a problem because I just plan on taking care of that in the next couple, and we're doing pretty well, and I'm just going to take care of it, you know? And he's like, well, we got to, you know, wrap it into the house and all this other stuff. And that's kind of what we did. But, you know, I remember in Vegas, there was I'm trying to think of the name of it, but it was off of Tropicana, or maybe it was Flamingo on the west side. But like Andre Agassi lives in there, or at least he did at the time.
Summerlin.
And if you the Summerlin area, but it was a, like, you know, one of like a shop. It's a big walled community and everything. But so he had, if you pull the public records on all those houses in there, which you can very easily do in Clark County, I did that one day. It's all trusts that own those homes in that area.
Yeah. Andre Agassi's personal trainer is a client of mine. He comes in the office once a month and hangs out in the office with me. But that's where I live. I live over next to Dana White.
Dana White? Right.
Dana. Yeah.
Dana White. It was like a Dana White. That's a throwback.
Yeah.
But yeah,
OJ Simpson lives over there with me, so I live in Summerlin. But yeah, they're either trusts, and the trusts are owned by LLCs that are owned by another LLC somewhere else, and so on and so forth.
And yeah, but I mean, so many people are in the mindset of I got to own my house and come hell or high water. And on the flip side of that, they, you know, it either hurts or helps them. But I think it actually probably helps them depending on what they're buying. But I mean, the whole notion of the paid off car, Brad and I talked about this too. I think even when I run another podcast. I help a buddy of mine do another podcast. We went down to Grant's place and shot an episode down there with Grant on the in the 10X studios there. And we were talking about leasing versus buying a car and everything. And, you know, people to this day, even, I want to own my car. Well, you know, you got a 60-month note, dude. You don't own the car, you know?
Right.
And when I sold Mercedes, it was a matter of telling them that, well, when you pay a lease, well, I want to own the car. You can own the car at the end of the term. But on a car like this, that costs $150,000, you are paying for literally the depreciation of the freaking car. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The car's going to do that no matter what. And plus your mileage, your cost per mileage is going to be 85 cents to 95 cents to maintain the car. At least you know what you're paying per mileage on the car.
Yeah.
You know, and then I brought up the notion of a one-pay lease, and Cardone immediately, he's like, no, those aren't good either. I'm going, really? I said, man, I used to get like 2 cars for one for that, man. Because I mean, literally it's like half the value of the car. So yeah.
That's another thing Grant and I don't see eye to eye on is leasing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm actually thinking about leasing a new truck. Only because I got two vehicles that are paid off. I got a Vet and a Tundra that are paid off. That if I sell them, I'm going to get hit with recapture tax. But if I trade them in and put it towards a one-pay lease, I can write it all off. And I already got to write it off once. Now we get a double write-off. But here's my opinion on leasing. I don't think you should lease if you have any consumer debt whatsoever. If you have student loan debt, credit card debt, buy a car that's already depreciated down. You know, these Hondas and Toyotas, my Toyota is 9 years old, and I got less than $30 in maintenance in it so far. It's got 150,000 plus miles, and I'm $30 into it so far. And the only reason I want to get rid of it is because I've already depreciated all the way out. I want to get some more write-offs. By selling it or trading it in, I can get a double write-off on it. So I don't think you should lease unless you have no debt whatsoever and you're in a business that you can write it off. You know, there's no reason you have to have a brand new car every 3 years. Get a 3-year-old car every 3 years. Let someone else. I mean, my Ferrari, I got it for $300,000 less than what it sold for new. I let someone else pay for the depreciation. It had 16,000 miles on it when I bought it. It's brand spanking new, basically.
And you can get 12-year loans on those?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Through Woodside. Yeah, Woodside Credit.
Was not aware of that.
12 years. Yeah, fixed year, 20% down, 12 years, and I think it's like 5% interest or something.
Well, I guess they hold their value over a little bit better than typical cars, and you're not. It's not your daily driver. So I mean, the other aspect, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but you're in that particular sector, the automotive sector. If you're a fan of disruptive technology and phenomenon, if you will, Mercedes and BMW right now, I believe in this market in Philadelphia, they're flipping the whole notion on its head. They're turning the car business into a subscription model. I saw one. It was and they have them in LA, they have them in Miami, and I think New York and Chicago, but they don't have them in Las Vegas. And you pay, it was like $1,200 a month subscription. Yep.
And there are like 20 different cars that you can pick. And you and they were all, $100,000 plus cars. And you pay this $1,200 a month. It covers the insurance, the maintenance, everything. And you just pay the monthly fee, and you just go switch the car out anytime you want.
Whenever you want. And it's all
whenever you want a new car,
There's literally exactly. I mean, for a business owner, it makes complete and total sense. You can completely write it off. It's called the Mercedes-Benz Collection. And the pricing is exactly like what you said. It's serving Nashville and I believe Philadelphia. I can get into a C-class bucket of cars for $10.50 or $10.95 a month, and just I can do it via the app. I don't even have to go into the dealership anymore. That's I mean, wow.
And I think that's the way. I think that's where they'll get eventually.
I think so too. And that's for people that are in the car business. It's kind of like, oh man. You don't need to. It does.
You get paid a commission every single month as long as you renew, and there's no insurance, there's no license, there's no maintenance. You just drive it and get rid of it.
One of the businesses I own is an LED lighting business. We do conversions for businesses, and we actually rolled out a new program. We're calling it LAMP, of all things, Lighting and Maintenance Partnership. So we're repositioning the whole. We're not leading with cost savings, because all the utilities now are catching up and they're adjusting their rates, because the migration to energy efficient technology has really started chipping into their income. So now they're reassessing, and now all the rates are kind of, we can't lead with that anymore. But typically still people see a savings. But anyway, we are coming from the notion of it. We're making that what we call a lighting as a service type of agenda. And that's like every business is going that way now. You can't even download Photoshop. It's got to be a subscription through Adobe. I mean, it's stupefying.
Yep. Look at Windows. It's a subscription. Same thing with QuickBooks. You can't buy it anymore. It's a subscription.
Word.
Yep.
And people are paying it.
Yep.
People are paying it, man.
Well, you don't really have a choice. You're kind of stuck with it.
Yeah, pretty much. But I mean, for us, it's more of an operational expense for a business rather than a capital project. And we're starting to, we've been rolling it out about a month now. And we're starting to see a lot of people, it's one of those ideas that you're kind of like, I'm not seeing it, but hey, why not? And all of a sudden it starts getting traction. You're going, there might be there might be something here. Especially when you take the pain of corporate approvals and all that stuff out of it.
Yeah. Hey, I want to interrupt you for a second and answer that question that Clay has asked twice, if that's all right.
Sure. Go ahead.
He said, if I pay down my credit card usage, I think it means balance, to 30%, will it drastically increase his credit score? Most likely, Clay, it will. Remember, I said every 10% is 10 points, and then it puts you in a different scorecard. If you want to see a serious increase to your score, pay it down below 10%. So have it somewhere between 1 and 9. And I don't recommend that you pay interest, but sometimes math is hard for people. So pay it down to $1, and then leave $1 on there. If you want to pay interest on $1, that's fine. Otherwise, pay it off completely and then put a little bit on it every month. But to answer your question, yes, you will see a difference in your credit score in a positive way if you pay it down below 30%.
That's what I'm going to start. Like you were talking about, the philosophy of putting Netflix, Hulu, Amazon on one and, utilities on another or whatever.
I can't reach it from here, but today on the TV interview, I have a wallet with like 30 credit cards in it. And they're all open, they're all active, and each one of them has a bill. Netflix, electric, internet, water, sewer, gas, right? All my utilities. But I really only use 2 credit cards. I use my Amex and my Costco City. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
My Amex for business, Costco for personal, and the rest are $10, $20, $100 here and there. And then they pay themselves off. I call it putting them on autopilot.
Right.
They pay themselves off in full every month, and I don't have to worry about it.
And that's just you connecting them with the draft to the bank account and just doing its thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep. I'll have to look into that for myself.
So you can do it through their app, or you can do it through your bank, whichever one you want. Some of my cards that I put large amounts on them, like my Citi, I have it to where my Costco card pays itself off in full, but my bank, CMB Bank, also sends a $500 check because that would be the minimum. If I maxed out that card, that's the minimum. So I pay it off in full, but then I also send a $500 check every month. Just in case that it didn't get paid off in full, another check's coming in. And some people might not be able to financially do that. But, at some point I have a $500 credit, but then I use it for groceries and I wipe out the credit. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Give me a quick call to action. People who are going to be watching this, people who are watching this, who are the people you're looking for your business to grow it?
We're looking for people between the age of 25 and 55 that had some hiccups in the past that want to increase their credit score, or they want to learn how to pay off their credit cards, their student loan debts, pay off their mortgages faster. Because not only do we do credit repair, but we do financial coaching. I have over 59 individual programs starting with how to pay off your mortgage in 5 years to how to buy a multifamily apartment complex. And then in the middle, how to legally not pay income tax, everything in between. So anybody that's really wanting to move forward in their life financially would be, a good contact for me.
Have you ever tried to get on, have you been on Cardone's show, Power Players?
I haven't been because I'm not going to give him $50,000 to be on that show.
I was not aware that happened.
Oh yeah, it's $50,000 and I'm not about to do it.
Right.
I was actually on Cardone TV for a year. I was the number 1 and number 2 watch show for a year in a row. And when Robert Cicillo come to me when my contract expired, he's like, "Hey, you want to renew?" I said, "Sure. How much are you going to pay me?" They're like, "No, you're going to pay us." I'm like, "No, I'm not. I have the number 1 watch show on your network. I ain't paying you. You need to pay me." So we went our separate ways on that. But no, I'm not going to pay the $50,000 to be on Power Players.
He's an interesting fella, Robert. I met him at the coffee shop before we went to the studio.
Yeah, I like Robert. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
All those guys are good.
They really are. Their culture there. I always talk about culture in businesses, and I don't know whether he knows it or not. I'm sure he does, but I mean, he created one heck of a culture. Very surprising to me that I was anticipating something vastly different, and was pleasantly surprised. Welcomed us with open arms. Embarrassed my wife, which I thought was hilarious because she's not a public speech person, and they do that culture meeting every morning, and we just kind of happened to walk in on it. We were like, "Oh, hey, everybody's here."
Yeah.
I should have filmed it, man, but it was amazing. But I don't want to hold you much longer, man. Where can people find you and follow you?
They can find me everywhere at Rondi Lambeth. So rondilambeth.com, YouTube Rondi Lambeth, Instagram Rondi Lambeth, Facebook Rondi Lambeth. That's the advantage of having a very unique name, being named after a woman, is there's not very many Rondis here in America. So it's everything Rondi Lambeth.
Okay.
R-O-N-D-I.
I'll put that at the bottom of here where you can see in the description where to follow Rondi. And also, if you want to hire him for speaking events and all that other good stuff, make sure you reach out to him, follow him. A lot of good information. Listen to his podcast, especially the upcoming. You got a new one that's coming out where you're going to start doing a show like this, interviewing, influential people. So I guess I probably won't be on it for quite some time, but that's okay. But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, of all the shows you've done, this show is probably the best one you've ever done, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the best show I've done today.
On any day ending in Y. But anyway, thanks for watching and listening to the JMVO Weekly Primer. I want to thank my guest, Rondi Lambeth, with Fortress Credit, fortresscreditpro.com. Check it out online. Of course, I'll have all the contact information down below. Please, if you're a big fan of the show, all 10 of you out there, tell your friends so we can get 100 people out there that are aware of it. To download it on iTunes, subscribe, go to jimmccarthyvoiceovers.com/podcast. And please let me know what you think and comment on the show if you can. Thank you so much, Rondi, for taking time on a Sunday for doing this. It's been a while.
All right. Thanks for having me on. Let me know if you want me to do it again sometime.